Good day, everyone, and welcome to podcast number 11 here at Talents Unlimited Toastmasters Club, where we meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. and we have discussions in areas of interest, regardless if it's something like pathways, where we continually improve ourselves and develop. And sometimes we have curriculums. Not curriculums, but we speak about current events. But whatever it is, here at Talents Unlimited, we are going to make it interesting where you and I engage. Speaking of engagement, what is engagement? Well, engagement is the transfer of emotion, and it can also be commitment. So where can you use engagement? Carolyn, can you give me an example of how you engage people in everyday life?
I engage people through everyday life by communicating with them via text and also via telephone. Also emails. I get probably over 100 emails a day. Some wanted, some unwanted, but I get a lot. I also get a lot of texts because when you sign up for different things, people like to engage you. So I get texts also. And I also call people. Like today, I'm a member of a group called Diamonds and Pearls. It's for people 55 plus, and we get together and have events. So I'm a caller for that event. So today I had to engage the people that's on my list. They're going to have an event tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So I had to call all the people that's in my caller list to let them know that we're having an event tomorrow, the time, the place, and that they are serving food, because it's very important when you're engaging people. If you mention food, people will come out for a good free meal. So that is some ways that I engage people during the day.
And there you have it. That's only part of engagement. There's engagement in the social aspect. And you brought in perhaps a little bit of nonprofit engagement as well. So there's a business application to engagement. It's not only about delivering a speech and engaging with the audience. There's different applications of engagement. That's because the audience could be a person or could be used in a business environment where you're presenting something. Jim, how about you? What kind of engagement?
People don't like it when I engage.
They don't like it when you engage. Why is that?
I ask the tough questions and I make them think.
Well, that's a good thing, though.
Yes, it is, but people don't like it.
Well,
they tend to think I'm putting them on the spot.
So you're saying that engagement can be a little bit of intimidating to some people.
Yeah, especially if I'm in person. I mean, come on, face it. I'm a big guy. I walk into a room and I start asking tough questions. People are wondering what the heck is going to happen.
Well, that also goes with that cliche. If you're the smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? So if you're asking the questions, you must be in the right room. So that engagement of finding answers is something that is productive, and you're gaining knowledge through that type of engagement. And there's different type of engagements, as we just spoke about, in being not the smartest man in the room, engaging in more knowledge, and Carolyn with personal engagement and a business application. And there's engagement to be used at your place of employment. Even if you're not retired, you're using that engagement in a professional or semi-professional environment because you give presentations. So that presentation that you're giving, you're proposing, you may be proposing something or trying to sell an idea or an improvement. And to sell that idea improvement, you got to engage to get that input back. You got to have the people raise their hands. Hey, does this sound good to you? It does not sound good to you. You need to draw that information out, or acknowledge, have them acknowledge that they understand what this discussion is about. Because we don't want to have an audience that is just twiddling their fingers or yawning or slouching. Those type of engagements we don't want to have. We want to draw in everybody and make them part of the presentation. Would you agree with that, Flora?
Yes, Robert, I can agree with that. But you know, the biggest engagement that I enjoy is when I am in public with a smile. I love engaging with a smile and a hello, usually, and eye contact. Eye contact sometimes says it all. You know, sometimes eye contact can be so, I mean, sometimes your eyes can become so brightened, and that other person can be so enlightened by the brightness of even your eyes and your smile, till sometimes people will just stop and want to have a conversation. It goes beyond, hello, how are you today? How's your day going? That's my biggest engagement with everyday social affairs and social events.
That is huge, Flora. And that is something that I don't think anybody really knows that they actually perform on a daily basis, especially as you just mentioned, that smile and that eye contact. When you have that eye contact, I would imagine if you're looking eye to eye with somebody that I see you and you see me. So therefore we're engaged, and that smile just opens the doors for, like you said, a brighter day. So that's a different type of engagement. But here at Toastmasters, we seem to have an engagement, and I would have to admit, Jim enlightened me last week during my evaluation that I needed to become a little bit more engaged. And I thank him for that, because, you know, we're trying to sell something. We're trying to gain input with knowledge, whatever it is. We want to have that interactivity. We want the audience to be and us to have that conversation. What are some of the things that are the products of non-engagement? What could happen with a non-engaged person or even an audience? What do you think about that, Carolyn?
Well, with a non-engaged audience, a person could go to sleep. They could doodle. They could daydream. Their mind could wander. And in some instances, they could do other things. So it depends on the setting. Because if they're on a Zoom and they're not engaged, they may turn off their camera and get up and do some housework, wash dishes, do other stuff. In person, when a person is not engaged, you can probably look in their eyes, because normally if a person is engaged with you, they tend to look at you and look intently. But if they're looking around or looking off, looking up, that means they're not engaged. So they would, and then they may just walk away from the conversation. You know, you're in a networking event, you're not engaging. So they decide, okay, I'm going to go talk to somebody else. This person is really not that interested. So those are some of the things that can happen when you're not engaged. So you always want to ask a person, really to get someone is engaged, especially if you're in person, is to ask them some questions. Not some open-ended questions, so they would have to think. No yes or no questions, but some questions that probably is relevant to them and that they may have to think about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another part of engagement is if you're trying to sell something. I mentioned about selling an idea. We at Toastmasters try to sell Toastmasters. And can you imagine, and I know it's happened to everyone here, where we may have a guest come in and the engagement isn't quite so good to some of our expectations and they log off. And that's not a good thing. So where did we lose them and why did we lose them? And that's something that we need to look at ourselves. And that's why I value Jim's evaluation last week. Another type of engagement is for monetary gain. You're trying to sell something. Okay. In Jim, I can recall an example that Jim provided when he was talking about considerations of this. I forgot, Jim, so please forgive me. It was about this new monetary system that may come into play pretty soon.
Mhm.
And it wasn't for your own personal financial gain, but it was for our benefit in knowledge that you were trying to provide us. And you were asking for that engagement. So how can engagement help anybody in trying to deliver a message, whether it's professionally or personally, to help them avoid the pitfalls that could occur?
Well, let's face it. If you're going to try to communicate with somebody, it's always because of a reason. Doesn't matter how big or small that reason is. There's a reason for you to try to tell somebody something. You want to pass on some information. And you made the point where, oh, we're trying to sell something. Actually, you're not trying to sell anything. You're trying to give it away for free. Information is empowering. You can only make decisions and actions based on the information you have on hand at the moment. So the more information you have, the better your decision making and the more accurate you're able to do things. And you're able to prepare and take care of things. Right? So if you want to talk about that new monetary system, right, the QFS, and how it's going to be doing everything, how the dollar goes away and the reserve notes come back into being because you have to go back to asset-backed currency again. All those type of things happen, and the people who were born after 1970s have no idea because they lived in the fiat system for the last 40, 50 years. So you need to let them get ready. So when I started telling about the difference, the system and how it has to go back to being asset backed, it's just preparation for what's coming. It's something for you that you're now empowered to make a decision on how you want to protect yourself and your finances. That's all it is. That's all engagement ever is passing of information, one way or the other.
Absolutely, absolutely. And part of that engagement and passing of that knowledge is the energy or the emphasis on what you're trying to say. And a lot of that can be determined on your energy level. If you're trying to sell something exciting, you want that energy level to be up. The energy level should be up all the time if you're presenting anything. Flora indicated, her engagement with socially is the eye contact and a smile. Now, when you smile, obviously your heart rate and your energy level is going to go up because you're not depressed. So a high energy level is promotes a positive environment. You can't transfer that knowledge and you can't transfer those ideas. Can you imagine for a second if we went into a meeting as an example and I would like to propose this, and I think these would be the good benefits, and just just, and then meanwhile, you have people just writing down things and, and looking around and checking their phones, making sure that they don't miss that important stock option, those type of things. When you don't have that energy level and you're not reaching for that engagement of your audience, you're going to start losing them. As Carolyn indicated, you're going to start doodling. You're going to start looking away. You may lose a viewer. So how many of you engage non-voluntarily? You just engage as part of your natural life. I know Flora's camera's off. Carolyn, do you? I know I do. So I engage all the time. Sometimes I engage too much. I talk too much. So sometimes I have to withdraw and stop doing that. So energy in, energy out. Low energy in, you're not going to get too much enthusiasm for what you have to say. High energy in, you're going to get a lot of enthusiasm. You're going to get a lot of interest in what you have to say. And that's important, especially if you're practicing public speaking. As Jim indicated, when we're in this podcast format, we're practicing and we are speaking in public. How we present ourselves indicates not only a reflection of our club, but it's a reflection of us as individuals and how people perceive us. So I think that it's something to note and be aware of all the time. Like Flora said, it's very important because you only get one time of a first impression. And her one time, each and every time, if I'm correct, Flora, is that smile and that eye contact. So everything's at ease and it's going to be pleasant. Let's relax. Let's have that engagement. That's how I see engagement is. You'll be surprised, and maybe you're not surprised at how many people experience speakers in whatever organization, being professional, being public speaking, don't even engage. They speak, they present like we're supposed to get something and take some notes and walk away with it. How often is that going to happen? No, because I bet if you went and interviewed anybody after the speech, they're not going to remember half the things that were said. And that's one thing nice about this particular environment is we can engage all the time. We reflect back on what another person had said. So we know the message is getting absorbed. So in the end, we're going to be walking away with something here. So throughout our presentation, whatever it is, that interaction, that engagement has to happen throughout that conversation or presentation, whatever the case is. It has to happen throughout. Remember, we're trying to gain input about their feelings, how they feel about things. And if we don't understand how they feel, how are we going to be able to provide to their needs? Especially if we're trying to try to explain the benefits of Toastmasters. If somebody was, oh yeah, well, you can get better communication and leadership skills. Really, in reality, we're not going to gain anybody. Click, the person's gone, versus, hey, you know what? I've benefited from Toastmasters. I've gained so much knowledge. I've given presentations. I feel confident. That's different than, yeah, I did some presentations and, So it makes a big difference in how we engage each other, how we engage other individuals. And I think we all understand that, and we're all very proficient in that, I believe. So we discussed engagement in some way of verbally talking to one another, and we talked about raising hands. So Flora, have you ever used the technique of getting people to move their body, getting a reaction out of them from raising their hands or answers?
Of course, we do it all the time and virtually. Virtually, that's one of our main communication styles. But in person, yes, usually raising hands require a question. But so many times, if you're making a presentation in person, a
Mhm.
question is usually how you can always receive a raised hand.
Mhm.
Thank you, Rob.
That's very important. Get the people to move around. If we don't move around, you're going to start losing interest. So we got to get people to move around, raising hands, or if you see somebody's engaged, another way of telling us somebody's engaged is they may be nodding their head. If you look at not everybody's favorite, but Donald Trump and even Jim Carney, you can tell when they're engaged because you start doing this. And a lot of your great speakers, and as Carolyn mentioned, and last week, I believe, is listening. And you can tell when people are listening just by nodding their head. That is an engagement as well. We got to make sure we deliver that message. And I believe we all know how important it is that engagement is throughout a speech. Because the last thing I want to do is be part of a club or part of an event that we're not engaging. Carolyn and I are part of an open house for Division A, a committee where we're gonna have a Division A open house, which entails all the clubs in Division A, if I'm correct. But in order to have that open house, and we're trying to entice people to come in, we're going to have to engage before, during, and after. That engagement has to happen. If we expect people to come in and say, and we're trying to explain the benefits of Toastmasters, we can't just say, well, here's a flyer, and if you have any questions. No. If you're handing somebody a flyer, you say, is there anything of interest in particular that might interest you? And they say, well, I like this leadership thing. Well, did you know that Toastmasters offers leadership, and as an example, this pathway, and you explain it to them. And so you're engaging them, you're engaging with them to satisfy and try to figure out what their needs are, because sometimes they might not know what they need. So we got to kind of understand what their needs are in order for us to be able to fulfill their needs and show them that opportunity in the event that when this upcoming open house occurs. So does anyone have any other thoughts of engagement? I'm sorry, Jim.
I do have some thoughts on what you were just talking about. Now, when you're doing this, even at the open house, you mentioned that you need to know what their needs are. But this is important. The idea of what their needs are is very important. Any true salesman needs to know what the MDBM is going to be for their customer. Right? If you don't know the MDBM, you have no way of being able to solve their problem. But when you make the presentation for an open house or whatever, you're not trying to sell Toastmasters. Get that out of your head. Remove that idea. What you're trying to do is you're trying to solve your guest's problem. Your guest has a problem. They're a poor communicator. They're interested in becoming a leader. They're interested in learning how to do presentations. Oh my God, that's the exact reason why you should be joining. We have this and this in order to be able to help you do exactly what you're looking for. And sell, if you're going to try to sell it on their level for what they're trying to solve. If you do that, you'll get new members. If you try to sell Toastmasters as a communication or a leadership thing without addressing their problem, you'll never sell Toastmasters.
Completely agree with that. I can't put it in any other words as you just explained. We're not selling, we're solving. We're trying to solve their concern.
Yes.
We're trying to, they're trying to,
look,
they're reaching out. They're reaching out.
We're in leadership positions here at Toastmasters. And the biggest thing about leadership is that we are servant leaders. This is the one thing that most people don't understand about being a leader in Toastmasters. We are servant leaders. We are there to help solve our members' problems. That's our goal. And if we do that on a consistent basis, including when guests come into the club, then you'll always have a vibrant club and you'll always have something that's going on, because the people who are coming in are seeing that they are important and they are part of something bigger than them. And if you make it that way, then they'll always be engaged, they'll always be doing something, and they'll always be part of it. The moment you stop, that's when they leave.
And you can probably even expand that to getting people, engaging with people to become future leaders as well.
Yes.
Because you're not including them, you're not engaging, and as you indicated. And then as we finally end this discussion, Flora, as being in Toastmasters for a long time and an experienced Toastmaster, how have you found engaging in a leadership role not only rewarding for you, but more importantly, rewarding for the individuals that you've engaged with?
Well, first of all, some of the members and people of other districts and clubs, they enjoy networking with you just because they know that you climbed a ladder per se. And you didn't climb that ladder just by taking one step at a time. You took steps up that ladder that required much work. I'll say it like that. And most of the members look at you to say, you mean you did all of that? And then when you go to like the big conventions, I like to engage with, I don't care who I pass, who I see, where they came from, doesn't matter. I like to engage. And I engage by maybe standing there talking to them. I don't know them, but I'm engaging. I'm very friendly. I don't have a thing on my mind. My home is not on my mind. My children, nothing is on my mind, but who I'm engaging with right there. And many a time, and that's what's so exciting about going to a Toastmasters convention. You be engaged everywhere you go. You turn around and go one direction, you go the next direction. Somebody is there for you to engage with. If it's no more than, hey, we see each other, year after year. So, you pass them in the hallways or you're sitting by them in a big old theater. That's what the Toastmaster experience of engaging with members and engaging with people across the world, engaging with your areas and your clubs and your districts. It's just so much. And Toastmasters has brought that to my life of engagement, pure engagement. I cannot pass a person without saying, hi, how you doing today? With a big smile, because it's in me. Now, I leave everything else at home. Whatever's going on at home or whatever's going on around me, I leave it all at home when I'm in engagement and I'm networking with others.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And real quick, I'm gonna have this final question to Jim here. An evaluation that you performed for me, perhaps 3 weeks ago, you mentioned about one of the positive things I did about having a relationship with your audience. Jim, how does that engagement establish, in your view, how does it engagement establish that relationship with an audience?
You know, tonight you're doing all this questions and you're getting people to respond. Right? And you bounced around between me, Carolyn, and Flora, and we're talking. Right? So let me ask you something. How do you feel about it?
Engagement, I think engagement is something that is required not only in a social
no.
aspect. What do you mean? How do I
You're
feel
missing my
about
question.
what?
How do you feel about the way we responded to you? How do you feel inside?
I feel great. I feel great because I understand where you're coming from.
That's the relationship. If you don't have that, if it's a one-way communication and you're sitting there talking to them, it's meaningless. But you're talking to us and with us, and you're engaging us, and you feel good inside. And I venture to say that the rest of us, such as myself, feel great that we're talking back to you and we're carrying on an actual conversation and some information is flowing. So you get these ideas and it makes a sense of importance between you, the speaker, and us, the audience.
Mhm.
And that's what it's about, right? That's the relationship that you're looking for. You want to be able to relate, you want to be able to respond, you want to be able to be part of. And that's what this is all about.
Thanks, Jim. And that's, in short, it's about the building relationships. It could be networking, it could be personal relationships, it could be exchange of ideas. You can be not the smartest man in the room, so you find the room where you're not the smartest man and you're engaging in gaining knowledge. You're engaging in selling ideas. You're engaging in what can I do for you as a leader. So that there are so many different reasons why we need to engage and so many ways we can engage in a positive way, as Flora indicated so beautifully about smiling and having that eye contact. And that's what we're here for. We're here to engage. We're here to hear other people's views. We need to understand them and perhaps even help solve each other's challenges when they arise. So that's what I feel for myself, what engagement is about. And going away from this conversation this evening, I feel that we all have a pretty good understanding on, as Flora indicated as my final thought, we started here and it took us all the way to get us up here. And I thank her for that, because that is knowledge that we need to keep in mind all the time. It doesn't happen overnight. So engagement, and that's what we're about here at Talents Unlimited. And
Well, let me ask you something, Robert. Do you talk to any of us outside of Toastmasters meeting?
perhaps not with this particular group, but with others once in a while. Not too often.
So with the way that you did the engagement tonight, do you feel empowered enough to do that?
I believe I do that enough. I'm not enough. For myself, I probably need to engage more. So that way you lose the message when you're texting or emailing.
Right. So tonight you created an environment of reciprocity where people respond to you and talk back to you. And you created a relationship in this meeting. So the challenge for you is to grow that same exact relationship outside the meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's something that we all need to do.
So
to a certain
I'm going to throw a challenge out there to you.
Okay.
There's three of us here, right? There's Flora, there's Carolyn, and there's myself. I want you to call each of us at least once a week.
Okay.
if for no other reason, just to say hello and see how people are doing. That's it.
Okay, you got
Because
Carolyn.
it's about the relationship, right? Now,
Yeah,
but
that's right.
you're laughing. It sounds silly, but I guarantee that if you do it, the relationship that you build outside the meeting will have an effect on the way you make presentations inside the meeting. I promise you, it will change. So communicate, talk outside the meeting.
I can certainly do that. So we're gonna talk about those Dallas Cowboys. Oh, no, I'm sorry, the Texans, Carolyn.
And we are winning. So hey, we got a good team going. Look for us in the playoffs.
All right, Robert. So overall in this meeting, I really enjoyed the fact that you engaged, right? So you took everything that I said last week and you took it to heart, and you came out and you did a bunch of engagement today. And I asked you how you felt about it, and you said you felt good about it. So because you feel good, I think you should do it more often. And this is why I put that challenge out there. It is a growth opportunity for you, and you've started the momentum in this presentation that you did tonight. So awesome job. I like the way that you're making it work. And I want to see what the result of the challenge to you is going to be, because I think it's going to change the way you think and feel about the club, about the members in the club, and how you present in the future. So good job. I'm looking forward to seeing how it comes out. As for the meeting itself, this was an extremely engaging meeting. This is what a podcast is all about. I really enjoyed the fact that you engaged us. I enjoyed the conversation that was going back and forth. I enjoyed everyone's answers that was going on. I think that we should do these more often in an engaging type of manner, rather than getting out there and just giving a speech. We should take our speeches and we should make them some sort of engaging to make things going on. But like next week, you mentioned that I haven't given a speech in several weeks, right? Which means we haven't had a current events thing in a couple of weeks, right? Because the last one was a current event. Which means next week we should probably do a current event. So maybe everyone here should pick a current event they want to talk about. And then we engage each other based on that current event and see what we think about it, right? Because clearly the views are going to be different. All right, so I'll give it back to you, Robert, our host, and then you can pass it off to Carolyn. Back to you.
Thank you, Jim. I just want to echo what you just said. I am going to fulfill that challenge, whether it's about the Texans or upcoming events over at Toastmasters with Flora and how it's going with something in her life, in her mind as well. So that's a done deal. We're gonna definitely do that.
All right, tell me if Flora's smiling when she's on the phone.
Oh yeah, you could hear when she smiles. So without further ado, I'm going to send this back over to our presiding officer, Ms. Carolyn Moore. Carolyn.
Thank you, Robert. That was a great, engaging podcast that we had this evening. And I thank you for taking over. I don't really have any business. If anybody is interested in the speech contest, we are having a speech contest training on Saturday from 10 to 12. I shall send out anybody on this. Is anybody interested? I can send you the link. No.
Yeah, go ahead. Just send the link out. You'll be good.
Okay, I'll send the link out to everybody.
Sure.
And as Robert mentioned, we are gonna have an open house on December the 1st for all of Division A. We don't have a venue yet. I think we may be having it at the Quartz Hill Library, but it's gonna be in person. And we're gonna have all the clubs participate. I think it's like 18 clubs. So I invite,
Awesome.
it's gonna from 6 to 8, I believe.
Awesome.
So it may be hybrid, but right now I know it's in person. But Robert is gonna head that up so he can work towards his DTM.
Go,
Jim, are you still recording?
yes, I am.
Yes. So before we stop the recording, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And remember, we are Talents Unlimited Toastmasters, and we meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And we guarantee an engaging production or engaging podcast, and you will come out smarter than you came in. So we'll see you next week at 7 p.m. here at Talents Unlimited.